Hello everyone and welcome to my old age hand tutorial. I will be walking and talking you through the process of how to age your hands with makeup to make them look like old people's hands. So firstly, I'm applying latex on the right hand. I'll be doing two examples. So I will be doing latex on the right hand, and then I will just be painting and contouring the left hand. So latex is optional, but it is a great option if you really want the skin to be wrinkled. So the way latex works is that it basically acts like a top layer of skin. So especially with wrinkles, you want the latex to be applied over skin that is pulled very tight. So with my model's hand here, I am applying it over his closed fist. And you want to make sure that you get a pretty even coat down. And you want to apply about 3 to 5 coats depending on how wrinkly you're going for. And don't forget the fingers or the knuckles or the thumbs especially. And you also want to blend the edges of your latex to be thinner. And by edges, I mean all around the product. So like the wrist, the bottom of the thumb, and the sides of the fingers. It just makes the latex look more natural. I like to apply latex with a sponge as well. You can apply latex with a brush, but it is very hard to clean out of a brush, especially when it's dried. So I just like to use a sponge because you can just throw them away and not even have to worry about cleaning them. So you can check if latex is dry by touching it, and if it is tacky, then it is still not dry. But if it is dry, then it shouldn't come up any on your fingers. So I'm applying very thin layers because thin layers dry a lot more quicker than thicker layers. You can do thicker layers, you just have to wait for that layer to dry before you apply the next layer. Now with liquid latex, you can just wait for it to air dry, or you can use a hair dryer to speed things up. But since my layers were thin, I just waited for the latex to air dry. So now I'm going on the other hand, the one that doesn't have latex, and I'm applying foundation. Obviously you want to color match to your model's skin tone. And I am using a Ben Nye foundation. The latex I used was actually a Party City brand, which you wouldn't think they would sell good SFX makeup, but surprisingly, some of their products are actually really good. Like their latex and their blood are very good. When applying foundation, don't forget the fingers and the thumb and blending out the edges of those as well. So now you can see my model's right hand has unflexed, and you can see that latex has wrinkled right there in the middle of the thumb and over the knuckles a lot. And you want to apply foundation over the latex to give it a more skin-like appearance. It does dry translucent, like you're able to see through it, but it does have sort of a shiny effect. So applying a foundation and then setting powder really makes it look like skin. Alright, so now we're going in with contour and contouring the left hand. So in the reference image that I saw, or that I was using to go off of, I noticed the tendons of the hands in old people stuck out a lot. And there are 5 tendons running through the hand, and they're all connected in the wrist, and they run out to each finger in the hand. So I'm applying contour in between those tendons to make them really look like they're popping out. You want to go in between the knuckles as well. Old people hands are basically very bony. Their knuckles stick out quite a lot in their tendons as well. So I'm going in and I basically drew where I wanted that contour to be. Now I'm going in with a sponge and blending that out because those are very harsh lines that I drew, and I want this makeup to look as natural as possible. Those precise lines are kind of getting muddled, like the blending is sort of going all over the place, so you can always go back in with highlight and foundation and fix where exactly you want that contour to go. Don't forget the outer edges of the thumb and the pinky as well. I'm going in with a very fine brush with the same brown that I used for contour and re-adding those lines in. Basically, I decided to re-add the lines in so I know what or where exactly to work off from because it all kind of got blended together. Going in around the knuckles. I like to use smaller brushes to draw things on as well because you have more control over smaller brushes and the lines are thinner and more easily manageable to work with. Now I'm going in with highlight, so you want to highlight all of the knuckles and the tendons themselves that are sticking out, so like in between those dark areas. And I am using the edge of my sponge to draw that highlight on those tendons. Going it in, blending it out. You want to add highlight to all of the knuckles and the fingers as well, because they are also very bony. Now I'm going back in and adding very carefully some of that contour that got too blended out. Just making those lines a little bit darker, making those tendons pop. And don't forget the area between the index and the thumb. Always blend out the edges of your makeup, especially where the makeup is going into the wrist. Now I had my model close his fingers here so I could put darker contour in between his fingers to give them the appearance of making them bonier and skinnier. And don't forget the outside of the pinky too. I did forget that one. Now I'm going in with a very small brush, great for detailing, and I am painting on veins. In the reference image that I was using, there were a lot of veins sticking out in this hand. They were very prominent. You could see them very well. So I wanted to go in and draw those on. Now, I kind of followed the reference image, but I also followed my model's natural vein pattern as well. So that Y shape coming out of the wrist is that major artery that runs through that hand right there. So I wanted to draw that one. And with this blue, I had this, it's almost like a navy blue. It's in the Bright Colors Flash palette, but the pigment was a little too bright, so I mixed it with some brown to get it to be more dull and more natural looking. Now it still is a little too bright as well, so you can always go back and blend it to dull that color out a little bit more. Now I go back in and I blend with foundation. I blend over those veins, like so. Now I will only be applying contour details or overall the general painting on the left hand because I ran out of time to do the right hand, but you can still see the difference of starting on smooth skin versus starting on unwrinkled skin. That latex really, really helps things. I wanted to just lightly blend over these veins, not enough that they disappear, but enough that they look more natural. Now I'm going in with my detail brush and I'm adding age spots. So I'm kind of lightly speckling those all over. Age spots are mostly prominent in the back of the hand, but I added some age spots to the fingers as well, just to make them look more blended and natural. And again, if you get them too dark, you can always go back and blend them out with foundation. Now I went in with a small square flat brush. I went in with the brown that I used for contour, and I filled in the natural wrinkles that my model already had on their knuckles. And I had him flex his hand to do this so I could see them more prominently. You can definitely see them on those middle knuckles right there. So I just went in very lightly, very feather light touch, and went in there. And you can see how those wrinkles pop out when he flexes his hand there, or unflexes. So you want to use a very, very light stroke here to get those. You don't want them to be too thick. You don't want them to be too dark. I'm going in with his hand unflexed, going in those wrinkles, sort of filling them out a little bit more. Now, I noticed in my reference image that where the arm meets the hand, the skin sags and wrinkles a lot. So I go in and I add some wrinkles right here to where the hand meets the arm. Now with longer, more drawn out wrinkles, again, you want to use a really light feather touch, very light strokes, and you want to sort of give them a slight curve, but nothing too prominent, nothing too crazy. And you sort of just want to layer them on top of one another like ocean waves. Oh, I forgot the thumb, so here I am going back in, getting the thumb. Now, depending on what you're doing this makeup for, whether it's for a theatrical production or a film or whatever, or practicing on yourself, you want to take that into account with your details and your blending. So if it's for a theatrical performance, you want the audience members sitting 30 feet back from the stage to be able to see the makeup just as clearly as the people sitting right in front of the stage. So you want to take that into account. But when it comes to film, film is a lot more detail-oriented than theater. So you want to make sure everything's very well blended, that your details pop, and that everything looks a lot more natural. Now I made this contour a little too dark, so I go back in later and blend that out. But right now I'm going in the veins and putting contour underneath and like over top of those vein shapes just to make them pop a little bit more. Re-adding some age spots there. Going back in with some highlight, adding those to those tendons and knuckles. It's really easy to accidentally blend out your work, so you can always go back and re-add things when you need to. Going back in with highlight, going over those knuckles. I also applied highlight to the model's fingernails as well, just to make them look a bit more old, a bit more dehydrated, I suppose. And I'm going back in with foundation, blending over that contour because it was a little too dark for my taste. I wanted to make it a bit more natural looking. Now that you are all done with that, you want to really, really well set your makeup, because humans use their hands for tasks a lot more than they use their faces, so to say. So you really want to make sure that makeup is well set. Now I used a Tarte setting powder and a big fluffy brush to set that, and you want to apply probably like 3 to 5 layers of setting powder. You really want it set on there. That way it won't smudge or crease, etc. Make sure to get in between the fingers and the wrists. And I also set it with setting spray just as a last measure.